Hey guys, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to my channel, and today is going to be a little bit of a different video for me. We're going to be talking about some stuff that's been going on with my daughter. I just felt for me it would be very helpful to just kind of lay it all out there and just kind of spill everything that's been going on with her. We have had some interesting things develop over the last couple of months, and I'm sure there are some other people out there that are going through something similar with their children or with themselves. So I thought this video might be helpful in case other people find this video that are kind of going through a similar situation that we are going through. So let me just kind of rewind back to the beginning. But first, in case you are new to my channel or if you're just unaware, I do have a 2.5-year-old daughter. Her name is Ivy, and I also have an 8-year-old son as well. All right, but let's go ahead and go back to the summer of 2019. That's when kind of, I think all of this kind of started. Now, I honestly don't remember. I was trying to think when I first started noticing the symptoms, and I honestly can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was maybe sometime around July or August of 2019 when I first noticed something was different. So my daughter is not potty trained. She wants nothing to do with going to the potty. I have gotten her to sit down on it a few times, but nothing. So she is still in diapers. So whenever she, starting back in July and August, whenever she would go poop, the poop started to look very different compared to what it had looked like in the past. And in the past, it was normal, I guess. I don't know, without going into too much detail, it was just normal, like whatever, like, maybe 3 or 4 baby wipes, maybe even like 2 would take care of it and we would be on our way. But starting sometime over the summer, things started to look very, very different in her diapers. And she wasn't complaining of any stomach ache or anything. It was just, they were just looking different. And trying not to be super graphic, but they started to kind of look like the texture, consistency of cream of wheat, if you know what that is, kind of like maybe grits kind of texture too. So not like diarrhea, but not solid. And I will say it was a ton. There was so much in every single diaper. It would go all the way up her front, almost spill out the back. Sometimes it did spill out the back. We definitely had quite a few blowouts over the last several months. Just with like this massive amount of poop that she was producing. And it wasn't just once a day. It wasn't even twice a day. A lot of times it was 3, maybe even 4 times a day. She was making these huge, massive bowel movements. And I just kind of kept telling myself, it'll get better, it'll get better, it'll get better. Like it's, like whatever. It's not a big deal. Maybe I'll give her an extra apple for some extra added fiber or whatever. But of course, it just did not get better. Then finally, sometime in October, I decided, okay, this has been going on too long. It's not getting better. We need to figure something out. So of course I went to Google and tried to figure something out. And I just Googled like constant diarrhea in toddlers. Like what could that mean? What can we do to try and fix it? And like I said, even though it wasn't like technically diarrhea, that's just what I ended up Googling to try and figure something out. And celiac was on there, which we'll get to. But the first, one of the other things that I saw that was on there was like a lactose intolerance, which I didn't think that she had, but I was like, well, okay, why don't we try switching her from regular milk, which she does drink, to almond milk to see if that makes any change. And so we made the change and she drank the almond milk no problem. And the first bowel movement she had after switching to the almond milk was almost normal. So I was like, ding, 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 super easy. We figured out what's going on with her. It wasn't completely solid, I remember, but it was definitely like going in the right direction. Well, that was very short-lived because the very next time she had a bowel movement, it was completely back to normal to how it had been. So we tried that for a few weeks and it never started to get any better. So I decided we need to try something else. So I thought maybe we needed to just put her on some probiotics. Now, probiotics can just kind of help your gut, give it the good bacteria that it needs to function properly. Back earlier this year, I had a skin biopsy for skin cancer done, and it was such a big one that my dermatologist put me on some antibiotics to just make sure I didn't get an infection, and that kind of messed with my gut. So I ended up having to go on some probiotics, which fixed the whole situation and made everything, just back to normal. And she has not been on any antibiotics, but I thought probiotics might help her anyways. Something maybe got a little messed up and we just need to fix that. So we got her some probiotics, and again, even after a couple of weeks, nothing changed. So finally, I think it was like the week before Thanksgiving, we ended up getting in with our pediatrician and talking to him about it. So we went in and we talked about our concerns, and at this point I was pretty darn convinced that this was celiac disease. Now, if you're not aware of what celiac disease is, it is the allergy to gluten. It's actually not technically an allergy, but that's what most people think of it as. It's really an intolerance to gluten, which of course is in everything. It's wheat, mostly barley, rye, all those kind of grains have gluten in it, and gluten is just added into almost everything. And my husband actually does have a family history of celiac disease, so it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility that that's what was going on with her. So we took her to the pediatrician, told her the family history, and told him, all of the different symptoms that she was having, which, like I said, really was only the bowel movements, just the massive amount, and just the consistency had changed. So he said, okay, we can definitely get her tested for that, but because she had grown since the last time he had seen her, and because she had put on weight since the last time he had seen her, he really didn't think that it was celiac. She was not meeting all of the requirements or all of the bullet points that one would have at 2.5 years old. She wasn't displaying all of the symptoms that he would think that somebody with celiac would have. But he said, okay, let's go ahead and do the blood test, kind of to like rule it out, basically, I think is what he thought he was going to be doing, was just ruling it out so that we could try and maybe figure something else out. So we got the celiac blood test done, which doing that on a 2.5-year-old is not fun at all. But of course, we wanted to do it. We wanted to see what was going on with her. There was really no other logical explanation that I could come up with at that point after trying the probiotics and switching from regular milk to almond milk, that it was anything else but celiac. So a couple of days later, he called me, like completely shocked again, because I think he did not expect her to have it at all, but her tests were positive. But I remember he did say something along the lines that those tests that they run aren't always 100% accurate for children under 3. But because they were positive, and I think they were actually quite a high positive number, not just kind of even like borderline, but like pretty darn positive, he did recommend that we go see a gastroenterologist to get some further testing done. So that same day, I made an appointment with her for the gastroenterologist, which was a few weeks out at that point. Those kind of doctors are always booked so far in advance. So we had to wait a couple of weeks before we could get her in. And our pediatrician did say that we needed to keep her on gluten at that point so that she could get further testing. So we were not taking her off gluten at that point, unfortunately, even though I really, really wanted to see if it would help. But also that very same day, I called my pediatrician back and made an appointment for my son, who again, like I said, is 8, and because I wanted to get him tested as well. And then I also really encouraged my husband to get tested. He's never gotten tested for it, even though he does have a family history. And he was like, no, I don't have it. I don't need to get tested. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to make an appointment for you because I just want you to know whether you have it or not, because, potentially you have multiple family members that have this disease now. So you need to get tested. We need to find out one way or the other whether you have it. So I ended up calling and making an appointment for him to get tested. And I think it was like the day after Thanksgiving, we took my son to the pediatrician, and he actually just needed like a full physical anyways. So he did that, and then we did go ahead and get him the celiac test as well. The doctor again was really kind of hesitant to do it on him because my son had displayed no symptoms at all. His poop's normal. He's gaining weight. My son is like a teeny tiny little beanpole as it is, but he did gain a little bit of weight from the time he was last there to now, and he had gotten taller and stuff. So he's like, again, I don't think he has it, but if you really want to go ahead and get him tested, let's just go ahead and do it. So we did get him tested, and then a few days later, a pediatrician calls me again with the results from my son's blood test. And there are actually 2 tests, like within the one celiac test, there's 2 different numbers that they give you. The first number, the more important number, which both my pediatrician and the gastroenterologist ended up calling that number, like the more important one, for my son was normal. However, the second one was elevated. So he said because that one was slightly elevated, and I think it was kind of more borderline elevated too. It wasn't like my daughter's where it was very elevated, but because it was not in the normal range, he did suggest having him go to the gastroenterologist as well. So I ended up calling the gastroenterologist back and making an appointment for my son as well. Fortunately, I was able to get them both in on the same day, like right around the same time, which worked out really, really well. My husband also went and got the blood test done right before we went to the gastroenterologist, but he just actually the other day got his test results back. I know there was some mix-up or something in the doctor's office, and he didn't get his test results for like almost 2 weeks, and he kept calling. I don't know. Whatever it was, he actually does not have celiac. So he does not have it. He is good to go. He doesn't have to go see any specialists or anything. But I'm glad we know, because that was always something that I wondered about, and I'm sure my husband wondered about too. Like, does he have it? Does he not? Because there is something called like silent celiacs, where you really don't have any symptoms, which is definitely something that he could have had because he really didn't have the symptoms, but he does not have it. So he's all good. Then I did take my kids to their gastroenterologist appointment, and the GI doctor that we ended up meeting with is really, really nice. I really, really like her a lot. And when she looked at Ivy's paperwork with her numbers, she basically just said, yep, she has celiacs. Unfortunately, she can't just diagnose just off of those numbers. We do have to do some further testing, which I'll get into. But basically, she just said, yeah, I don't see there's really any way that she doesn't have it. Though, like I said, she cannot give me an official diagnosis based on that. As far as my son goes, that's a little bit more complicated. She said we could do one of two things, because the more important number was normal. The other one was just slightly elevated. So she said it could be the start of celiac. Like, he could just kind of start to develop it now, because celiac is something that can develop at really at any point in your life, from what I understand. So he could just kind of maybe be at the start of it, or it could be nothing. So she said that we could do the endoscopy if we wanted, which is when they go in down your throat with a camera, get in it and take a look at your intestines and take a biopsy of your intestines. You have to get put under and all of that. Or we could just wait, because his number wasn't super high. We could wait about a year, keep him on gluten for the entire year, and then retest or redo the blood test in about a year, which is what we opted for at this point for my son. And she said, of course, if he does start to display any symptoms, that we should bring him in a little bit sooner to do that blood test, or we could go ahead and do the endoscopy if we wanted to. As far as where we're at right now, we are just going to keep him on gluten and do the blood test in about a year or so. Then as far as Ivy's concerned, she said we absolutely needed to do an endoscopy on her, which just, I mean, I know it's not a major procedure, and we've already been through it, but it's not a major procedure, but it's still scary. But it's what she recommended. It's what she said that we would be able to tell officially 100% whether she does have celiac, so we did go ahead and schedule that. So we ended up having the endoscopy done just a week before Christmas, and like I said, it was, oh man, it was just gut-wrenching. It was really, really hard for me. I don't think that I anticipated it being so hard, but the morning of, like, she could not eat, like, from midnight the night before until she had the procedure finished. And the procedure wasn't until like 10:45 in the morning or something like that. It might have even been a little bit later. So I remember going to bed the night before the procedure and just really dreading the morning, because of course when my daughter wakes up, she wants to eat breakfast. But we kept her upstairs. We didn't let her go downstairs at all, and just got her dressed right away. We played with her, and I actually bought her 2 new like little pillow buddy, frozen pillow buddies that she could take with her to the hospital, like an Anna and an Elsa one. So my son actually gave those to her, and she loved them. They were definitely a hit. Surprisingly, she did not ask for food at all, which I was super thankful for, because I thought that was going to be like the toughest part, and she was just going to be like screaming the entire way to the hospital, which was like an hour away from us. But that, again, fortunately was not the case. So me and my husband get to the hospital. My son had school that day, so we had dropped him actually off at with a friend right before school started, so that my friend could take him to school, so that he was all taken care of. So my husband and I drove her to the hospital, and we immediately got into a room. And she, of course, was not very cooperative. She was very just hesitant and very wary of all of the different things going around, all the different people. She's definitely in like that stranger danger phase, and she hardly ever talks to people like at stores or even like friends that she has met before. She is just very wary of anybody that she doesn't live with at this point. She doesn't like talking to people. She's just if someone tries to say even something nice like, oh hi, how are you, she will not respond. So I knew this was going to be quite difficult for her. And she was, like I said, very, very like ornery that morning when we got to the hospital. Even like the Anna and Elsa, which she did like, they weren't completely calming her down. She refused to put the gown on. She just wanted to sit just in her diaper. And we ended up having to sit in our room for like an hour before they actually wheeled us to the operating room. But so eventually we did get to go to the operating room, and my husband and I were able to go into the operating room with her, which was a blessing and a curse all at the same time, because I wanted to be with my daughter and comfort her. And of course, as soon as we got in that room and there's all of these machines, there's probably at least 8 or 9 people in there. It was very, very overwhelming for her, and she just, lost it. Had no idea what was going on. Was just screaming and crying, which made me cry. And fortunately, there was this lovely, lovely nurse there that was just like kind of comforting me, and she gave me some tissues. And I wasn't sobbing or anything, but I was clearly emotional just because my daughter was emotional. There was so many people. There was all of those machines and stuff going on. But the anesthesiologist was really, really great as well. He had walked us through everything that was going to happen. And to start, he put like a mask, like a gas mask on her to kind of calm her down. And that kind of like made her go limp. And that was very weird to see, because 1 minute she was kind of flailing and screaming, and the next minute she was like, as soon as he put that on her, like 5 seconds later, she was like limp and stopped screaming like immediately. It was very, very strange. As soon as she was sedated with the gas mask, we were escorted out of the room. We could not be in the room for the actual procedure, thank goodness, because I don't think I could have handled it. I know they did give her an IV to put some propofol in there for her as well to sedate her even more. So it's not like she was completely under, but she was very, very out of it, is my understanding of what was going on. And then they did, of course, scope her and take a biopsy of her small intestine, and the whole thing probably took about 20 minutes. I think me and my husband were probably in the waiting room for just about 20 minutes, and our doctor came out and said that she did fine, no worries. She was in the recovery room, and she said that her intestine looked fine, which she was not surprised about, because I think she wasn't surprised that it looked fine, because she had only been having symptoms for a few months at this point. I think some patients can't even get diagnosed just based on what their intestines look like, but I would assume that's from years and years of eating gluten and ignoring symptoms, if you have any, not just a few months. So like I said, she was not surprised that everything looked normal, and that we will get the results when we go to see her for a follow-up in a couple of weeks. So that's where we are now. We have not gone and seen her for our official follow-up, so we do not officially 100% know that she has celiac, but we are pretty darn convinced that she does have celiac. So the day of her endoscopy, which like I said was just about a week before Christmas, we were finally able to take her off of gluten. So she has been gluten-free now for about a week and a half. Which, I was really kind of thinking and hoping that her bowel movements were going to go like right back to normal. Like 24 hours after we stopped the gluten, it was going to be perfectly fine, nice, normal poops. And that has not been the case. And I don't know, part of it might be because I don't know exactly what everything has, or what every food has gluten in it. We are trying extremely hard to keep her gluten-free, of course. But it is in so much. I mean, it's just so overwhelming to see what all is in gluten. Like one thing that I actually just found out about today, like those McCormick seasoning packets. I get those quite often. I make stuffed bell peppers a lot, like a Mexican style stuffed bell pepper. And so I'll get the little McCormick seasoning packet. I purchased one last week. I actually used them last night to make the peppers. And there's nothing in the ingredients list that says wheat, rye, barley, malt. And I know there's some other things, but the ingredients looked fine. It didn't say that it contains gluten or anything. So I used that, no problem. But today we were at Walmart. We were shopping around, and Walmart actually has a really nice gluten-free section, which is like super awesome. There are a couple grocery stores in my area that actually do have those. One of the things in the gluten-free section at Walmart was a gluten-free McCormick taco mix. And I was like, wait, I need to buy a gluten-free version? The other one doesn't say it has gluten in it. I'm so confused. So I did go ahead and buy that for the next time that I make the peppers. But so I'm like, what other like hidden things might have gluten in it? I don't know. Like, it's just very overwhelming. So we are trying to go, I won't say that my household will ever be 100% gluten-free, especially because my son needs to keep eating gluten so that we can get him tested next year. But we are trying to eat mostly gluten-free, at least everybody. And of course, my daughter needs to be 100% gluten-free, and we are working towards that, I think. But it might just take a while, and we are just learning, and it's definitely, I feel like, a learning process because, like I said, it's in everything. Gluten is in freaking everything. Things you don't even think about. There was another thing. The reason why we went to Walmart today was to get some vitamins. My kids like eating a little gummy vitamin in the morning, and the ones that we have say, I think very clearly on the label, that they have gluten in them. Okay, no problem. Let's see if we can find something else. So I Googled last night gluten-free children's vitamins, and the Hello Bella ones came up, the ones from Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard. I really like their line of diapers. Those are good diapers. And it said that they were that they have some vitamins and that they're gluten-free. You can buy them at Walmart. Okay, perfect. That's why we went there. I'm reading the label when we go and we find them at the store, and it says that it is gluten-free. However, it is made on the same equipment that processes wheat. Why? Why do that? Why even announce and brag that your vitamin is gluten-free if it's really technically not? Because there is so much cross-contamination that can happen, from my understanding, that something like that made on the same equipment is definitely not safe. And there are warnings and labels on different foods that say that they're made in like the same facility. And from my understanding, and I could be wrong, but from my understanding, that's just kind of to cover the company's butt. From like lawsuits and stuff, but typically my understanding, and this could definitely be different for every single thing, so don't take my word for this, that this is exactly what happens every single time you see that label, but there would be a dedicated room or part of the factory that does stay gluten-free, and like another part of the factory will contain gluten. So but different areas, that can sometimes happen too, so it's so confusing. And I know I've said that 1,000 times, but it really is. I'm very overwhelmed. If we do get this official diagnosis, which most likely it sounds like we will, but yeah, so I don't know. And just the whole, like, I know of all of the like autoimmune diseases, celiac is not the worst because there's technically not a cure for it. If you don't eat gluten, you're fine, right? Like that's the cure. You don't eat gluten and you're fine. However, it's in everything, so it's very hard to completely stay away from it. You're not going to have as much food choices as the normal person, and I'm just devastated for my daughter in that respect because I feel like her innocence is kind of taken away from her at this point because she's not going to be able to just go to a birthday party when she gets older and eat the pizza and eat the birthday cake with her friends because she can't. We're going to have to bring a gluten-free treat for her to eat while all of her friends are eating birthday cake. Like, that just breaks my heart. I think I'm just rambling at this point, but I'm just so sad for her that this is going to have to be her new normal. So we're trying to make our house, and when we eat gluten-free with her. If my husband wants to go and have McDonald's or, have some pasta or something, he can, just not in front of her, I don't think. At least not at this point where we're trying to get our bearings straight with all of it. And I will say too, my son has been so supportive of this. I've just been so thankful that he's been so supportive and so willing to change. He told me today when we were at Walmart looking for some of the different gluten-free things that they have, he's like, Mom, I just can't eat gluten with Ivy anymore. I just know I can't, and I'm okay with that. So I'm so thankful that he's okay with it. Like tonight we just did, for dinner, we had some just frozen gluten-free corn dogs, which is something I wanted to try. They both do like corn dogs. I saw those. So we wanted to try them, and my son thought they were okay. He knows that that's the only kind of corn dog he's going to have anymore. We've switched to gluten-free bread and gluten-free crackers. So as far as how my son's going to keep eating gluten, it'll just really be at school. Like he'll take some Cheez-Its, like a little prepackaged Cheez-Its for snack, and he can have You know, if he buys his lunch that day at school, he can have whatever he wants. Maybe I'll get him like, I don't really want to buy like more bread, but maybe I'll figure something out so that he can have gluten, because I did hear that you need to have like 2 servings of gluten every single day to like keep it in your system for testing purposes, so it's accurate. But yeah, again, I think I'm just kind of rambling at this point. I will do an update once we figure out really what's going on with her, if it's celiac or if it's not, which I can't imagine that it won't be, but we'll see. But I will do a follow-up on this video just to kind of let you guys know. But I hope this was helpful in case this is something that you're going through with your children or yourself. You know, you can be diagnosed with celiac at any age. It doesn't discriminate from what I understand. No, you don't have to have all the symptoms to test positive for celiac. You can have all, you can have none, somewhere in between. And just kind of trust your gut. If you want to get tested for it, get tested for it. Even if your doctors are saying, I don't know, just really push to get tested for it. And if they still say no, go see a different doctor who will get you the test, because you know, it's just a simple little blood test, and it can tell you a lot about you know, what's going on with you. And if you are having symptoms, it can really cure up a lot if you can start going gluten-free, because you know, celiac people aren't supposed to eat that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble. This was very cathartic for me to just kind of let everything out there. Again, hopefully this was helpful to some of you who might be going through something similar. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will, of course, like I said, do an update on this video. If it's up, maybe I'll try to put it up there, and maybe I'll do a playlist so you can go check that out in case I start making more celiac videos. We'll see. No promises, because who knows what's actually going to be happening, but we'll see. You know, there'll probably at least be a couple of videos on that playlist. But thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.